silent again. For a little longer, Frank stood by the window. Then he moved away out of his room and into the rickety kitchen. There he wadded paper, pushed it into a greasy little wood stove, poked kindling in on top of it, and struck a match. Flames sprang out at him at once. He waited a considering moment, then pushed in more wood, all dry white oak faggots because they gave off considerable heat but made no telltale smoke. Then he closed the stove, set the damper, and returned silently to his room to fully clothe himself. Afterward he went out for a bucket of water at the creek. While he was down among the willows, he forked hay to 4 sleek, racy-limbed, fine animals in the corral. Then he returned to the cabin and washed. By then the cabin was warming up. Also by then there was another man near the stove. He twisted to see as Frank came into the kitchen. This man was younger than Frank Reno and larger. He had on his trousers but no boots or coat, and his gun belt was sagging heavily around his middle. He yawned and scratched his belly. "Cold out," he said by way of greeting. Frank nodded, saying nothing in return, set the bucket upon the stove, and turned his back upon the younger man. Next he drew a skinning knife from the outside of his left boot and went to work slicing side meat at a 3-legged table someone had propped up with a box. While the other man washed, making bear-like sounds as that cold water fully wakened him, Frank Reno slid slices of bacon into a little frying pan. Instantly there arose a sizzling, and then in that cold and silent air the drifting aroma, warm and rich, of frying fat meat. Frank wiped his hands, put on the coffee pot, and stood pensively watching the bacon curl and brown. His companion passed out of the kitchen briefly, returned fully attired, and went on out of the cabin. He was not gone long. When he returned, he swore and rubbed stiff fingers together. "I had to be crazy to let Buck talk me into coming into the high country this late in the year," he said. "It's cold enough out there to freeze the ears off a brass monkey." "As I recollect," stated Frank Reno, "it didn't take a lot of talking, Josh." Big Josh Pendleton grunted and stopped rubbing his hands. He put a hungry look upon the frying pan. "A feller's got to live," he said. "Only sometimes I wonder if this isn't the hard way to keep alive." Frank's head came up. He studied Josh a moment, then resumed his vigil over the bacon, saying, "You don't mean that. You wouldn't go back to riding for the big outfits if they begged you to." Something flat and distant and patently thoughtful in the way Frank had said that caught Josh Pendleton's attention. He put a steady gaze upon the small, older man. "Would you go back?" he asked. But Frank made no reply. He simply flicked over the frying meat and raised and lowered his shoulders, keeping his head down, his face averted. "Buck'd like to know," said Josh, still watching Frank. A third man entered the room. He had already washed at the creek, and he was fully attired. He said, looking from Frank to Josh, "Buck would like to know what." He resembled Frank in a vague way, but he was taller. Josh looked guilty and uneasy. He mumbled, "We were just talking about working for the big outfits is all." The lean man moved up beside the stove, shot Frank a look, and reached for the coffee pot. He did not smile, but there were times when his tone was light and bantering, like now when he said to Frank, "Pshaw, you'd work a lot harder than you're working now, and for 1/10 of the pay. Josh, want some coffee?" Josh reached for the out-held tin cup. Frank forked the bacon onto tin plates. He neither looked at nor spoke to the lean young man. Josh did. He said, "Buck, there's a look to the sky and a smell of snow to the air." Buck sipped coffee and puckered his face because it was scalding hot. He was looking at Frank again. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Fine," stated Frank. "Eat your side meat." Josh and Buck reached out for the dripping bacon curls. A fourth man came into the kitchen, and he too was blue-lipped and bright-eyed from washing at the creek.